to greatness, or are you subscribed to mediocrity? I ain't renewing my subscription to mediocrity. I've been in that jail and I ain't going back. We ain't going back. We ain't going back. We ain't going back. We ain't going back. So anyway, I not to brag, but I did get up and I did the miles, and maybe for some people it's not even a big deal. Some of y'all probably did twice as much, but then I took the baby to school, and then I came home, and then I went to lift a little while, and then I came home. So that was my morning. But anyway, I hope everybody's feeling good. And let's jump in. There is some really heavy stuff. Has anybody seen what's been going on with this NBA gambling scandal? Anybody seen that? And y'all know I'm all over this because I've talked to y'all about just financial decision making and the psychology, financial psychology. We talk about that a lot in class. And let me just tell you, ooh, buddy, ooh, buddy, ooh, buddy. Let me tell you, it's messy as hell. It's terrible, and I'm angry as hell about it. I'm really angry because I can't. I just wish I could help everybody really see how dangerous this is. This is going to be the financial version of the fentanyl crisis. This is what this is going to be. This is going to be so you can call this financial fentanyl because when they decided, and I guess it was a court decision, and then next thing you know, all the different states wanted to make money, and the NBA wanted to make money, NFL wanted to make money, and they started inviting in sports gambling. And it reminded me, it was completely illogical to me. I was like, y'all don't remember having to ban Pete Rose from baseball for life? You don't remember athletes like Art Schlichter, who was the Heisman Trophy winner at Ohio State, and his gambling addiction and what that did to him? Y'all don't remember the World Series being fixed in 1919? You don't remember any of this? Like you think that somehow we're so sophisticated that that's not going to happen in the age of high technology where everybody has a casino in their cell phone? You don't think that can happen again? Have you not learned from the past? I mean, I just I didn't understand it. I was really, really upset and really angry. I said, okay, we got I've been ranting like crazy about it. You go to my Twitter or Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. I've been talking about this a lot because I said, look, I've been bringing this up. This is gonna be bad. And one of the things that if you go back a couple of years, you might have remembered. I remember saying, I said, yeah, it's only a matter of time. There's gonna be some massive scandal where they're gonna find out that a bunch of players are shaving points and all these other things. And here's the thing about it. It's not even like we think this is a big scandal. This is tiny compared to what's really there. I mean, this ain't even the beginning, y'all. I'm telling you. Like this ain't even the beginning of the beginning. So many athletes. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Magic Johnson announced that he had HIV. Anybody remember that how sad that was? That was a really sad day. And what was really fascinating to me is that people don't do math. People they acted like Magic was the only person on earth who had HIV that week. Like they really acted like Magic was the only person that Magic ever had sex with. They didn't consider the fact that Magic had sex with thousands of people. I assume women, but maybe not all women. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. They didn't even think about that. Nobody talked about this. Nobody talked about what happens when highly promiscuous people are all sleeping with each other and get passing all kinds of funky diseases to each other. Like nobody, and I just thought that was so fascinating that they were literally like, oh, we got the whole HIV epidemic contained because now we found out Magic has it and nobody else caught it from him. Like, no, really? Like, so I tend to, as a statistician, I'm always looking beneath the surface. I'm not looking for the story. I'm looking for the story that's beneath the story. Or like one way to say it is, if you find one roach in your kitchen, that does not mean that you have one roach in your kitchen. And if you find one roach in your kitchen and you kill the roach in your kitchen and you say, we've killed all the roaches, that makes you a damn fool. You got to be an idiot. We're roach free now. Nothing to see here, folks. And that's what I think the NBA is going to have to do. They're going to have to lie their way out of it. But they're not stupid. They know math too. Maybe they don't know math as well as I do. It's okay. I got a whole PhD in this type stuff, so I get it. That's fine. But they know how to count, and they probably know things that they don't want the public to know. In case you don't know what happened here, and this is all financial because let me just explain to you why this is such a big deal to me. Why this got me so fired up. How many of you have a young black man that was either raised in your house? Maybe you are a young black man. Maybe you know a young black man that you care about. You got a nephew. You got a friend. You're dating a young black man. Anybody? Give me anybody affiliated with a black man under the age of 35. Maybe you are one. Maybe you are a black man under the age of 35. But anybody, give me a yes in the chat. All right. Okay, so let me explain this to you. Your affiliation with a black male under the age of 35 means you have an affiliation with the group that is the greatest target for this financial fentanyl crisis right now. These financial STDs that are being spread through gambling addiction, that's what it is. I wrote about it in my book, Financial Lovemaking, in 2006. 20 years ago, I wrote about this in a book. These financial STDs are spreading rampantly and it's hitting that demographic the hardest. They are ground zero for this. Why do I say this? I don't know. Maybe we should go ask let me see what I made a list. Maybe we should go talk to LeBron James, who did the DraftKings commercials, Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, Kevin Hart, Jamie Foxx, Drake, Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather, Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. Smith, Drewski. I don't know if Drewski did one or not. I can't remember. Joe Budden. Ask those guys. Ask all these black men that they are hiring to advertise gambling websites. Bro, you're being targeted. You're being racially profiled unlike anything you've ever seen. Not since Joe Biden put all the black men in prison in the 1990s have you ever been more racially profiled in your life. They are targeting you because you look like the biggest sucker right now. You are most vulnerable for this addiction. Let me calm down because when if I start off yelling, it may not come out the way I want it to. Let's start going down the rabbit hole here. I'm going to share with you my screen, and forgive me for yelling. I yell when I'm mad. And in case you want to, if you want to know the details of the scandal, it's massive. It involves lots of players, coaches, dozens of people getting arrested. It's just the beginning. It ain't going to just be the NBA. Next, they're going to the NFL. Then they're going to the WNBA. They're going to go to Major League Baseball. And you know what they're going to find? They're going to find that a dumbass 25-year-old isn't smart enough to know that the technology will be able to tell if you got money to pretend like you were injured so you could leave the game early because they have these things called prop bets. I bet that this player is going to score less than 10 points. This guy's going to get less than 12 rebounds. Whatever. These prop bets. So a natural thing for a dumbass 25-year-old to do. I used to be one. I was a 25 and I was teaching college students at 25 and I was a dumbass. So I can only imagine how what it would have been like if I was a regular 25-year-old. But even though I taught college students, my brain didn't fully develop till I was 25. I was a 25-year-old dumbass. So don't get offended when I call you a 25-year-old dumbass. You won't see it until you're 35. Then you'll start looking back and you'll say, "Man, I really was stupid. I just didn't know it." So here's the deal. It's quite logical to expect that what's going to happen is, especially if you bring in the mafia and you got your homeboys who are all betting like crazy because they're all a bunch of black males under the age of 35. So they're betting big money. You got the hookup. You know, like as Damon Jones, who played in the NBA, knows, he knows LeBron. He finds out LeBron is injured. He tells his homeboy. They come up with the scheme to place a big bet on a prop bet on LeBron not scoring 25 points tonight or whatever, and then they split the money. Easy, right? Very simple. Very simple. It's very simple if you don't know technology. It's very simple if you don't realize that there are a bunch of 55-year-old men like me who've been around the block, who know how to monitor your dumb ass, who know how to go in and scan the metrics to determine abnormal betting patterns. It makes sense if you don't understand how many people have a stake in watching you like a freaking hawk. It makes sense if you don't understand the world. Because it would have made sense to me when I was 25. Like, yeah, man, we're going to do this. Ain't nobody going to know. No, everybody knows, man. Because we know statistics and we have analytical tools. We know this is the calm down. All right. I'm going to play a video for you. And this is from Michael Francis. Michael Francis is a mobster who is a really honest guy, and I like him a lot. I don't watch his show that as much as I used to, but I like listening to his stories because he tells the most amazing mob stories. And he did. If you ever want to hear like a really funny breakdown of Al Sharpton, he did the best breakdown of Al Sharpton where he was literally like, "Oh yeah, he's got a nice little racket with the black community. He's able to go out and make money doing blah blah blah." Like he just talked about like, "Oh yeah, it's a racket. It's another mob racket." Like you know. But we're all like, "Oh yeah, civil rights leader." No, this is mafia. So listen to Michael Francis. You'll like him. He's a smart man. And do me a favor. Y'all know how I mess up the technology sometimes. So let me know if you can hear and see this. Okay, so give me a yes if you can hear and see. And I put this on my Instagram page, and I ain't gonna lie, my Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance, and I'm not gonna lie, I blame the NBA for this because they never should have opened the floodgates for this. You're introducing gambling at a level that it hasn't been introduced before. Yes, people have always gambled for thousands of years, but when you're marketing that shit at a damn sporting event to a bunch of young kids, it's literally an inch away from entrapment in my opinion. That's what you're literally sucking them in with the prospect and the lie of easy money so they can all get 10, 20 years in prison and then destroy their lives. Because one of the best pieces of, let me before I share this, let me just tell you this. Best piece of advice my dad ever gave me, and I feel sorry for the guys that don't have fathers that will talk to them like my father talked to me, because my father would tell me, he'd be like, "You being a dumbass, don't do that dumb shit," right? um but the best advice he ever gave me was, he said, the worst thing in the world that a man can ever have is a gambling addiction. He said, if you ever want to destroy your life, get a gambling addiction. And now, mind you, my father he was addicted to heroin. He overcame a heroin addiction. And this is where I came up with my simple black male theory. I when I wrote I did something in years ago called BOMB, Building Outstanding Men and Boys, and it led me to think deeply about the things that affect men and cause us to not become our very best. And also it came from when I wrote my book, What If George Bush Were a Black Man? And I said, I get it now. I think the four things that can destroy a man, if they're not managed carefully, are sex, drugs, alcohol, or gambling. If you take any of those four areas and you use them in excess, they can destroy you. Sex, Shannon Sharp; drugs, DMX; alcohol, Allen Iverson; gambling, the whole fucking NBA. Excuse my French. Not the whole NBA, but a lot of those guys. I'm not saying all of them. I don't want to condemn everybody. I'm not doing that. But you know what I'm talking about. Just the fact that Michael Jordan was this big role model for everybody and had him and Antoine Walker and these guys gambling all night long, all day long, and drinking at the same time, which only accelerates your overconfidence. I get it. You're young, you're high testosterone, you're very competitive, you want to be friends with Michael. Next thing you know, Antoine blows $100 million in generational wealth. Allen Iverson blows $100 million in generational wealth. Countless other men blow $100 million in generational wealth, and we just act like that's not a big deal. It is a damn big deal. It's a very big deal. So let me play this video so we can listen to what Michael has to say. So here it goes. Tell me, give me a yes if you can hear it. Give me a quick yes in the comments. Here it goes.
How do you get players who are making millions in some cases to get involved in something like this?
You know, I don't think you understand the level of gambling among professional athletes, even college athletes. And I've been doing this for 30 years since they recruited me. All the leagues recruited me out of prison, you know, back in 1994, because they knew they were having such a problem. And I had a number of bookmakers working for me. The FBI filled them in on that. So they chose me to come and speak to the players and try to dissuade them from getting involved with organized crime. You don't realize, gambling is an extension of their competitive nature. It raises the stakes in the competition. These guys get themselves in so much trouble. Doesn't matter how much money they make. And, let me use Michael Jordan as an example. There was a time when I said Michael had a real gambling problem because he gambles on everything. And I've witnessed it in certain cases when I was working with the NBA. But, he came out in that thing that he did, the documentary on him, and he said, I don't have a gambling problem. I have a competition problem. I'm not shocked what I see with Chauncey Billups. I'm not shocked with that player that, gave some information. I'm going to come out early in a game, and this way you can bet the under on me, and we'll split it up afterwards. I mean, this happens all the time. It hasn't changed over the past 30 years.
How do you get players?
Okay, did everybody hear that? Did everybody hear what he said? I like Michael Francis. He's one of the most interesting. If I ever get a chance to meet him, I'd love to just talk to him for a while because he has the most logical way of just laying out common sense information. Maybe he just reminds me of my father because my daddy was a gangster, but he just happened to be a cop. But him and Michael Francis would have had a great conversation because what young men in Black America don't get is common sense advice that you get from your daddy because a lot of our Black boys don't have daddies. There's a way that men can talk to other men that I think is not valued in society. It's underappreciated. And ultimately that saves you from making terrible mistakes when you're young. Not to say mothers can't do their job. My mother loved me, she nurtured me, she was great for me. But there were times when my father got in my face and said things to me that I needed to hear, and it wasn't politically correct, but it was correct. Do you understand? It was correct, but not politically correct, but it did the damn job, which was keeping me out of the streets, out of prison, out of bad situations, avoiding the mistakes that he made when he was young. I learned a lot from that man who used to be a heroin addict, and that's why I never tried drugs because he was adamantly against it because he'd already had that experience. So one of the things that's really unfortunate is that we as a community sometimes, some of us, not all of us, some of us don't really understand that the universe is a textbook. God is giving you lessons every day. Every time you see a celebrity die from a drug overdose, that's another lesson. You should be studying that. Every time you see a player make $100 million and go broke, that's not something to just be sad about. That's something to go study. You got to go analyze and do an autopsy on the dead body, the dead dreams, the dead possibilities, the death, the generational death, the financial death that has occurred. You should study that and say, how do we learn from that? How do we get to the point where we say never again? So when I see the NBA and the NFL promoting gambling at sporting events, my head almost exploded. I was like, "Oh my God. Oh my God. I hate that as much as people that sell drugs in front of an elementary school because you're literally getting young people, these highly competitive young men whose brains are not yet fully developed, and their confidence is through the roof. They don't listen to people like me. They're like, oh man, you don't know what you're talking about. You old. Da, da. Like, man, maybe I understand the way my daddy understood. He understood things I didn't understand because he'd already made certain mistakes. So I've made mistakes. I've been close to people who've made those mistakes. I've seen the outcome. So really, this is bad. I'm telling you, this is gonna be absolutely terrible. So let me read something to you that will help you understand why a gambling addiction is such a scary thing for me. Gambling addictions scare me as much as addictions to crack and meth and heroin and everything else. And let me explain what happens and the thing that makes it so difficult to overcome the gambling addiction. And you really got to share this with your son, share this with your brother, husband, boyfriend. And I'm gonna just tell you the truth. If you are a woman and you're dating a man who gambles a little bit too much, I will be really careful about that. I'm not judging. I'm trying to go start no fights. But when I wrote Financial Lovemaking, another book I wrote when I was on the faculty of Syracuse, I spoke to a lot of people, and I remember particularly women who had run into scenarios where their husband had made a lot of money, but he had some vice that destroyed his wealth. He had some vice. He had something that he couldn't get over. It could have been women, it could have been drugs, it could have been alcohol, it could have been gambling, and that vice destroyed everything. It turned her fantasy into a nightmare. Right. One lady I talked to told me that her husband was a NBA player, and he was good enough to play in the NBA a couple years. Then he went and played overseas. And if you know anything about sports, guys can make good money playing overseas. So they had a really lavish lifestyle. They would, go on vacation, spend $10,000, that kind of thing. And she said that then he couldn't play anymore and he wasn't making the same money. So, but he had the same habits. And ultimately, all the money's gone, no financial security. They end up getting a divorce, and then she's back. She was back in New Jersey, living with her mother, with her three kids at 35 years old. And so really these conversations I think are so important, but I think the NBA is complicit in this because you're dangling this thing right in front of people. And I don't know if the guys really understand that the things that you think you can get away with, you really can't get away with it. So anyway, let me explain to you. Let me give you some science here so we can walk away with a good lesson instead of just, I don't want you to walk away and be like, well, what did Dr. Boyce say? Oh, he was just yelling the whole time because he's bipolar. He crazy. All right, so well, y'all know I'm crazy. I think the cat's out the bag on that. But anyway, by the by the way, yeah, I'll tell you this later. I was gonna go in another direction, but I'll go back here. So here are reasons why it's so hard to overcome a gambling addiction. Number one, gambling triggers the same dopamine reward system as cocaine or opioids. So that same high you get from cocaine or opium, you get that from gambling. The brain starts to crave an unpredictable near win. So when you think you're close, that makes you really crave it, and it makes losses feel like motivation. So when you lose, you want to keep playing because you're like, oh, I almost had it. And the casinos are really good at this. They manipulate that part of your reward system. They want you to think that like it's just one more game, one more try, one more roll of the dice, one more bet is going to be your next big one. Over time, the reward system actually rewires itself. So your brain actually becomes rewired and it stops responding to regular pleasure. Like the regular stuff in life doesn't give you pleasure anymore. You need to gamble in order to feel that high, or in order to feel it. Also, the second thing that happens is you have an illusion of control. So a lot of gamblers often believe that skill, intuition, or luck can change their outcomes. And this false sense of control, it fuels risk taking and denial. So you start thinking that you can win it back. And that's where gambling becomes so sneaky. It's like it really, if gambling was a person, it would be Satan himself. It's like it would be Satan and Diddy. If Satan and Diddy had a baby, it would be called gambling. They would name their baby gambling. And so what the Diddy Satan baby does is he says, oh, you got it, man. You got it. You'll figure this out. You can win it back. Oh, you lost 100,000. Well, next time bet 200,000 so you can get back the 100,000 and then make another 100,000 on top of that. Right? It's easy, right? I mean, you've lost 5 times in a row. You can't lose 6 times in a row, right? It just really tempts you like that. And what it does is it creates what I call financial quicksand. And that's where you get in these impossible situations where you're making, and this is why a lot of gambling addicts who run into significant problems have a much like a 15 times higher likelihood of unaliving themselves, taking their own lives, because they get into these financial holes that are impossible to get out. Like think about this: you make 40,000 a year, but you're $250,000 in debt, right? And then you got to go back and tell your wife that you might lose the house, and it's a horrible feeling, right? And I remember one time when I just joined the faculty of Syracuse, and there was a casino that was right near where I lived, and I told you all I like poker. I don't like gambling. No, gambling makes me sick to my stomach. But I remember that I was going to buy a car, and the guy that was driving me around in my car was like 70 something years old. And I said, are you gonna when you gonna retire? I said, you've been working this for a while. And you know what he told me that was interesting? This changed my life. He said, yeah, I had $500,000 in my retirement account, but I lost it all at the casino. And I thought about how sad that man must be to be in his 70s, where you can't work like you used to in your 70s. You're tired and you lost everything. You got to start over at 74, 75 years old. And at that moment, I swore, I said, I will never, ever, ever put myself in that situation. Now, great question, Kevin. How is poker not gambling? Well, I don't play poker for money. Or if I play for money, it won't be real money. it'll be, and I don't even play that much anymore. I used to play more, and I was pretty good. I like the competition. I like the skill, I like the strategy, the math, and the psychology of poker. But usually when I play, it'll be like an amount of money that's like insignificant. I can't do those high stakes, high roller type things. That don't. It's like nah, nah, nah. I'd rather find other ways to make my money. But yeah, so that's the difference, right? So you can play poker. You can get a little membership on a online poker club for like $25 a month and literally be playing with fake money, right? So that's what I mean when I say I like poker, but I don't like gambling. I hate blackjack. I hate all the games because it's just the casinos are so rigged against you anyway. But anyway, let me keep going. Here's another reason why gambling addictions are so hard to overcome. So they would call this financial entrapment. So the more you lose, the deeper you go into trying to recover your losses. So the deeper you go in the hole, the harder you work, the more you risk to chase that loss. So chasing losses, again, financial quicksand. You just the more you try to get out. If you remember the Incredible Hulk when he would get caught in the quicksand, and if he couldn't, and the more he tried to get out, the further he would sink into it. And so a lot of credit cards, payday loans, and online betting apps, they make it easy to keep funding your addiction. So this is where the class action lawsuit's going to come from. You heard it here first. There's going to be a class action lawsuit at some point where when this becomes a full blown financial fentanyl crisis, that's what it's going to become, and you're going to have thousands of people that are going to join a class action lawsuit with hundreds of attorneys, and they're going to sue these companies for basically being the modern day drug dealer. And all the black men, and I'm sorry, I'm holding accountable all the black men that are participating in this. I was really proud of the guys at Earn Your Leisure because they called it out. I like the fact that they called out Joe Budden, who's one of the podcast hosts or something. He hosts some show. And they basically said, why are you promoting gambling to young black men? And they didn't say it like that. They didn't say it the way I would say it. They probably said it nicer because I'm good at losing friends because I just say it the way it comes out. I just can't help it because it makes me mad. But generally, they're the only ones I've seen who really talked about this, and I'm really proud of them for doing this because they understand that investing is not the same as gambling. And there are lots of people who are gambling and they think that they're investors, but they're not investors. It's gambling. You know, when you got a chance to have these big gains and big losses, and you're losing 50,000 and 100,000 and all that stuff. That's big. That's too much, right? But I get it though. What happens a lot of times too is that when you feel like you have nothing to lose, like you feel like, okay, I'm broke anyway, I might as well bet it all. That takes away your incentive to do the little things that lead to long-term wealth building or starting a great business where you get your income up to 10,000, 20,000 a month, and then you have more money to pour into your stocks and your real estate and all that. So the risk is everywhere. But there's what you call efficient risk and inefficient risk. So efficient risk is the type of risk that you have when you have a diversified portfolio of financial assets that are going to go up and down in value. That's a type of efficient risk. Inefficient risk is when you bet it all, you throw it all out there, you put it all on black, you put everything on the line, and all this other nonsense that you hear. It bothers me because what happens is that the people that will tell you something like that are people who, in many cases, people who actually took the risk and won. So I remember, I don't know if it was Will Smith or some famous, I don't know if it was Will Smith, might have been somebody else, but they basically said, I think it was Eddie Murphy who said this. He said that when you go for your dream, you shouldn't have a plan B because basically you should be in a position where you have to be successful no matter what. I get that, but the problem is that when you talk about trying to sort of have a career like an Eddie Murphy, a lot of your success, part of it was based on talent for sure, but a lot of it was like that you just happened to meet the right white person that put you on TV. There are many, many people I've seen, some online right now that you can find that are just as talented as an Eddie Murphy, but the world ain't got room to have 10,000 or 100,000 Eddie Murphy. So if 100,000 people try to become Eddie Murphy and two of them get a chance to do that, what about the other 99,998 people who didn't succeed? There has to be other ways that you can pursue your dream and still have options for yourself. Options. That's the operative word. You know, that's one of my favorite words. So anyway, I called out the names that come up in terms of people that are doing these gambling ads. LeBron James. I love LeBron, but I don't love this. Shaquille O'Neal. He said he was ashamed in an article or something. You should be very ashamed, man. You have plenty of money. Stop promoting gambling to people because you know that they're targeting black men with this. Guys that don't have the money that you have. They're gonna go broke. They're gonna lose their families. They're gonna end up in prison, some of them, because they're following OGs who are what D1 calls DGs. DGs stands for disappointing grown-ups. If you're 40 and over 40 or 50 years old, you can't be leading young black men into a ditch. We got too many DGs, disappointing grown-ups, who are leading young black men into horrible places. And Shaquille O'Neal, by promoting gambling, that's something I cannot respect, nor is this something I can support. I know these white folks paid you a whole lot of money, like they always do. They love a big black athlete for sure, but at the end of the day, real people are being hurt by this. And this NBA scandal, again, this is just the beginning. This doesn't show you the tens of thousands of regular men who go to work every day, mainly black males under the age of 35, who get up and go to work every day, who are quietly struggling with a gambling addiction, who are quietly losing, their last 5, 10, 20, $30,000 and trying to figure out, how am I going to explain this to my girlfriend? How am I going to explain this to my wife? How am I going to get stuff for my kids now? I'm so embarrassed now. I'm so ashamed. And a lot of times this struggle occurred because they were chasing a dream that some celebrity pushed them to pursue. Remember, they pick black men that are comedians and athletes because these black men who are the comedians and athletes are influential on young men. The young men, they don't have the father to look up to all the time, so they look up to their favorite athlete, their favorite rapper, their favorite comedian, and this is damaging. This is, again, these are the modern drug dealers. I'm sorry, Kevin Hart, I hate to say this, but this is how I feel about this. Jamie Foxx, Drake, Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather, Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. Smith, all these men that other men want to be, their influence has been bought by these corporations. They've been placed in front of the world like little mascots and told, okay, guide all the Negroes straight to financial hell so that DraftKings can make another couple $1 billion off of suckers that are going to fall for a dream that will never, ever come true for 99% of them. It bothers me a lot, and I think it's ridiculous, and I just absolutely hate it. I'm sorry. I'm hater of the year right now. My PhD is not a doctorate in finance. It stands for player hater degree. I am a player haterologist right now because all of this is just horrible, absolutely terrible. And all the science backs me up. Don't debate me on this because I need you, before you sit down and think you can debate me on this, I need you to go research what gambling addictions do to the brain, especially what gambling addictions do to the undeveloped brain of a 23-year-old who's got $2 million in his pocket because he just signed an NBA contract and doesn't have a daddy to slap him upside the head and tell him, what the hell are you doing, man? He doesn't have that. So he's going to fall for this. There are probably, for every one guy they caught in the NBA doing this, there's probably 10 or 15 more who are sitting back there sweating now, scared to death because Trump is going to come for all of them. That's the other thing, too. If you want to know what I think about this politically, I told my friend today, I said, oh, yeah, this is Trump getting revenge on the NBA. That's what he's doing. He's petty. He's petty as hell. He knows crime because you could argue he's a criminal, right? He's been in casinos. He's dealt with mobsters. He's probably been aware of sports betting and what's happening underground for a very long time. Probably more familiar with this than any president's ever been because he's lived in the underworld. So he knows where all the roaches are. He knows where the bodies are buried. He knows where to do the raid. He's like the drug dealer running the police station. He can tell you where the dope houses are on the block because the man has lived this. He ran casinos for a long time. He's coming for the NCAA. He's coming for the NFL. He's coming for Major League Baseball. He's coming for all of his political enemies. So just get ready. The shit show has just begun. So, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seat, grab your popcorn, get you a drink, because we're going to be here for a couple of hours because it's going to get more interesting after this. Let me keep going. This is more for your sons that you can talk to them about in terms of why you want to avoid gambling addictions like the plague. Another reason gambling addictions are hard to overcome is because they provide an emotional escape. Gambling becomes a coping mechanism for anxiety, loneliness, or low self esteem, which is really at an all time high. I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but Gen Z is a little different. The 20 somethings are a little different from what we were in our 20s. We just kind of were a little tough. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, we were a little tougher. We like grew up going outside and playing, and we kind of had to fight for stuff. Some of them are a little bit broken. I'm not making fun of them, but they're just different. We it's taking us time to understand y'all. I ain't gonna lie. But and so part of what's happening is weird things have occurred in this generation. Like I don't know if anybody has seen the statistics when they say like the average 20 something year old male hasn't had sex in a year or something crazy like that. Like, what are you talking about? We used to have sex all the time in our 20s. You get your little girlfriend or two or whatever you're doing. I'm not judging. And like life was just different in the 90s. So now so what they're saying is that the gambling, sitting alone with your phone or sitting on your computer with your hoodie on and gambling and doing the online thing has kind of become a thing. And what it is it becomes a coping mechanism for anxiety, loneliness, or low self esteem, or the inability to connect with other human beings. They also say that shame and secrecy make people hide the problem until the debt spirals out of control. So if your son, your nephew, your boyfriend, whatever is, or you are having this issue, they're not really gonna, it takes a really long time for somebody to admit that they have a problem. Like usually what has to happen is they've got to like just go through some horrible experience that scares the shit out of them, like some bookie threatening to come break their legs and kill them, or they've got to lose like every penny, and then they'll come out and confess. But until that point, you always want to believe that you're going to make a comeback, and once you make the comeback, you'll clean up the whole mess. Everything will be fine. I believe that's actually what happened with Sam Bankman-Fried. If you remember, Sam Bankman-Fried ran FTX, that crypto company, and he'd done some stuff he shouldn't have been doing and using investors' money or depositors' money to buy these cryptos. And I think for him, he was just sort of waiting for the market to kind of recover so he could cover his tracks. And truth be told, if they'd given him another year, it would have worked actually. If they'd given him another year, all those cryptos that he bought that crashed, this is when they always catch Ponzi schemes, is when something crashes. So the market crashed, everything went to shit. And so people start investigating, and then that's when they find out about the irregularities. But if either the crash had never occurred, or if the recovery had occurred sooner, no one would have been the wiser. No one would have known, because actually, what people don't know is that with Sam Bankman-Fried, not only did they get back everybody's money, but they had this massive profit of like $500 million, and they're like, "Well, what do we do with this now?" Right? So this is the trick. Again, I told you, Diddy and the devil got together and had a baby called gambling, and the devil likes to play with your head. It likes to tell you like, "Hey, just wait it out. It's gonna be okay. Just one more try. Just keep going. It'll be fine." Or did you ever hear the story about the guy who lost it all and he bet it all, and then great things happened? Did anybody watch what was it? America's Team? It was a great documentary. I've talked about it. The Dallas Cowboys. What was it called? It was called The Gambler and His Cowboys. And Jerry Jones tells this really inspirational story about how he bet it all on an oil well, and the oil well worked out, and he made $100 million, and then he bet it all on the Dallas Cowboys, and eventually he became a billionaire because of that. That's a true story. That does happen. And what makes the story so much more dangerous is because it's not fake. It's not made up. It really did. Jerry Jones really is a billionaire. What happens though, the deception behind it though, is that there's typically a tip of the iceberg effect here, where you're seeing the tip of the iceberg, but what you're not seeing is the whole iceberg itself. The iceberg itself is 98% of the story. The tip is the top 2%. So with Jerry Jones, you're seeing that one guy who bet it all and everything worked out great. You don't see the guy who bet it all and eventually took his own life because he lost everything. You don't see the guy who bet it all who's still, in bankruptcy court. You don't see the guy who bet it all and ended up getting 30 years in prison because he started selling dope in order to try to make enough money to make the same amount that he was making when he was in the NBA. You don't see the guy who bet it all and still his credit score is messed up. He's still in debt. His life is in complete shambles, right? They don't show you those stories. And that's an imbalanced perspective. That's the point that I'm making here, is not to say that these things don't happen. And it's not to say that you shouldn't take chances. I'm a big believer in going for it. I like to go for it sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, man, balls to the wall. Let's make it happen. But I've also learned that balance is really important. And I've also learned that sometimes you ain't really got to bet it all, right? Just, sometimes people bet it all just to prove their manhood. Like, hey, I'm going to prove I'm a man, so I'm going to just throw it all on the table. Why? Why we got to just take penitentiary chances just to prove that we're men? Well, that's maybe because we're a couple of 25-year-olds who are still trying to prove ourselves. But when you become a grown ass man, then you learn how to have confidence, but while still knowing that you can still engage in a type of preservation strategy as well. You can do a little bit of both. Do you understand? It's balance. That's something that you don't learn as much, I think, when you're young. I think that the whole narrative is, just risk it all, throw it all out there. Why? You don't actually have to do that. Like when you invest, you don't have to put all your money in one stock, and you can get rich and diversify at the same time. You can take chances, and as long as you know what you're getting into, sometimes you can say, let me go ahead and go a little bit harder. Let me go ahead and triple down on this. You can still do those things. And really, I would encourage anybody who wants to understand this is that you can still get the joy and the fun and the excitement of taking chances. And I'm a big believer in a big chunk of my career was built on risk taking. I mean, everything I did was different. I mean, when in my career, stuff I said, the way I moved, putting money into my business, all that. No, I had no friends doing this. Everybody thought I was crazy. Everybody told me, hey, boys, this may not work out. But don't you dare think that I never had a plan B. Don't you dare think I didn't have a way to pivot in case things didn't work out, that I hadn't visualized, okay, what happens if this all falls apart? You got to be ready for that. And that to me is a type of maturity that you get through time. And what makes the NBA such insidious culprits, especially in all the OGs like the Shaquille O'Neals who are promoting gambling, the Jamie Foxxes and the Kevin Harts. I point them out specifically because you old enough to know better. You know what this shit does. You've had friends that have been destroyed from this stuff. So I'm mad at you right now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really mad at these guys. I like them. I'm sure if I met them, I'm sure they're very nice people. But I'm really angry at them because somebody told you that all money is good money. Somebody told you that if DraftKings pays you $100 million to do an ad or 50 million or whatever they paid you, that it's okay to do it. No, you're no different from the drug dealer who gives away turkeys on at Christmas and is selling heroin and fentanyl all throughout your own community. That's not cool. You can make money some other way, and I'm telling you, go back and look at how many players lost it all, like the Antoine Walkers, and listen to them talk about how gambling played a big part in them losing everything. There's something about gambling that hijacks the brain to the point where you don't make smart decisions. Kenny Smith made a good commentary about it. I like Kenny Smith. I never met him, but I'd love to talk to that guy one day. He's a smart man. He played in the NBA, and he was explaining. He said, "Yeah, gambling addiction makes you do things that are not logical." But really, that's true for any addiction. A cocaine addiction would. I had a cousin who died from an overdose from cocaine. I remember here's what's crazy about it that was so sad was um the way he got introduced to drugs was his greatest dream came true. Remember, I told you Diddy and the devil had a baby, and when that temptation comes, it's always your worst nightmare comes dressed as your greatest dream, typically, right? So for him, his greatest dream was to be discovered as a singer and become famous. So he was famous and discovered, but he was too young to be on the road. So he went on the road with a group out west and in California, and that's when they introduced him to cocaine when his 14, 15-year-old brain was too young to properly process what that means, right? If you know anything about how the brain works, when you get introduced to drugs as a teenager, it affects you differently than if you get introduced to it as a 35-year-old. Which is why hip hop should be indicted for the promotion of drugs to young people. It's ruining them. Like literally, a lot of the mental illnesses, you'll see somebody, they'll say, "Oh, he's bipolar. Oh, he's schizophrenic." Well, that's because that could be partly because his brain chemistry was thrown off balance when he was 17 or 18 years old. Some of these drugs you can't come back from. I talked to a brother on an airplane who worked for the DEA, and he said, I get so angry when my black friends say I'm a sellout because but he said I've seen what these drugs do to their kids. Like he said, some of these drugs ruin your brain cells forever. Like you can't just say, I'm clean now, everything's good. No, it's like chopping off your left arm. You can't say, well, I stopped chopping, so now my arm's gonna grow back. No, you gonna just have to go through life with a nub. That's what you're gonna have to learn how to nub your way through life because you had God gave you a left arm and you chopped it off. So anyway, with this said, one other thing about gambling, so it becomes a coping mechanism for anxiety, loneliness, and low self-esteem. It offers temporary excitement, purpose, or identity, especially for young men trying to prove control or success. So young men, they don't know who they are. They're trying to prove themselves. They're trying to be somebody, and all the social media images give them this impression that if you are the high roller, if you go to Vegas and you're wearing a suit and they give you the roll out the red carpet for you, that you are somebody, and that really is them plaguing or them what's the word? They are exploiting your insecurities at that point. Moving on. Once emotional dependence sets in, it stops feeling like losing your only way to feel alive. Okay, so once the emotional dependence sets in, okay, stop to quit feels like you're losing your only way to feel alive. So a lot of times it grabs you so much that you only feel alive when you're gambling, and that's a terrible place to be. Also, sports betting, online casinos, influencer culture have made gambling look harmless. And this is the danger of gambling. It reminds me of alcohol in this sense. I don't know if anybody knows this. You probably know this if you've been listening, but or listened to stuff I've talked about before. Does anybody know what the most dangerous drug in America is? And you probably can guess by what I just said. In fact, I'm not even going to make you guess. I'm just going to tell you. Studies show that alcohol actually is the most dangerous drug in America. Sugar is probably up there too, right? Alcohol. And you would say, well, what are you talking about? How can alcohol be the most dangerous drug in America? It's not crack, it's not fentanyl, it's not heroin. Well, the reason alcohol is the most dangerous drug in America is because they make you think it's harmless. They made for a long time. And the smartest thing Gen Zers have done that our generation did not do is they're actually saying no to alcohol. They're walking away from alcohol because they're now learning all the studies that show that alcohol increases your chances of dementia. Alcohol destroys, I mean, it is just poisonous to your freaking body. What alcohol does, especially excessive use of alcohol, just ruins you. And so, basically alcohol is the most dangerous drug in the world because they also measured not just what it does to you physically, but just what it does to you socially. How many families are ruined because of alcohol abuse? How many car accidents? How many sexual assaults? How many people? And and again, I got lucky because I had a daddy who used to be a drug addict and he was an alcoholic. He was two for two, and he just at an early age just told me, don't do this if you ever unless you want to ruin your life. And I listened to my father. Sometimes you get the best lessons from a man who's made mistakes. You get the best lessons from somebody who says, I've been down that rabbit hole. You don't want to be down there. Don't even take the first step. So I never gained even an appreciation for alcohol. I tasted it, it tasted nasty. I never made it into an acquired taste because I was lucky enough to have a father who loved me enough to be honest with me about life. And he showed me the results. He'd point to some guy, he'd say, you see that MF over there? I'd be like, yeah. He said he used to be the captain of the football team when we was in high school, but now look at him now. He's homeless, right? He'd be like a homeless person with a liquor bottle, and he'd be like, you want to be like him? I was like, no, and I said, okay. He said, so don't drink alcohol. So in my head, it's like, okay, alcohol, drugs, no, thank you, right? And so really, I would say gambling is in the same category as alcohol because somehow somebody, I don't know who did this, but whoever did it, they did a number on a lot of people. They really pulled a whammy on American culture. They convinced us that it's safe and that it's okay, and it's not okay. It's all the studies show. Go talk. I wanted to bring my wife in here because my wife's an addiction expert, and she teaches a class on addiction and what addiction does to the brain. So I got to bring her in because I really want to encourage you to have that talk with your sons and of course daughters can get caught up in things and stuff like that, right? So I'm not here to act like only young black men are the only ones that get hit by this, right? Other people get hit, but I told you I'm here first and foremost for the black community. Be one black first. That's what I am. And so but really if you happen to be white, Mexican, I don't give a shit. Like really that under 35 age group for whatever reason, that is the age. And in fact, I think it has to do with like testosterone and all that, because they actually say that at 35, a man's testosterone drops by 1% per year after the age of 35. So that's why guys, my age, we got to go to the gym and lift weights and all that to kind of keep our testosterone high. When you're young, it's naturally high. And in fact, that's why men over 35 are easier to marry and they're more mature, more settled, because when you're young, you just have all this extra energy, and when that's not guided in an appropriate way, it just leads to these explosive, sometimes destructive outcomes. You'll see some guy. I saw a video this morning of a guy who said he was 19 and got caught up in the streets, and he was driving the getaway car in a robbery, and they gave him 144 years in prison. He only had to do 16. I always thought that was interesting. Like, how do you get 144 but you do 16? But I was happy for him. He got out. He got out at 37 years old, so he missed all of his 20s and almost all of his 30s because of something he did when he was 19. And I bet you anything, he didn't have a good, strong male role model that was guiding him at that time, right? Your mama can't really guide you away from some of that. Sometimes as a young man, you just want to be around other guys and have that male experience. And mothers want to keep us safe. But there's something about being 18, 19, and you're an ambitious man. You don't want to be safe no more. But even my mama would try to, keep me like, come here, Beverly, you poor baby. I was like, no, I'm a man. I'm gonna go out here. I'm gonna go get it, mama. I'm gonna go make it happen. And that's just what you feel. And I wish more people would talk about that so that we can acknowledge that and help men find productive uses of that extra energy. The gambling stuff, that's not it. That's what's gonna that stuff will ruin you. So in fact, let me give you a couple stats on this before we move on. Also, I want to mention something real quick. I hope you'll let me give a shout out to a couple of black-owned businesses that Chanel mentioned, that Chanel sent over to me that I wanted to tell you guys about. Deshaun Tellez, she has a company called 72 Sold, all one word, and it was recently voted the number one real estate firm in the Western U.S. and number two nationwide because they developed a way to sell your home quickly for thousands of dollars more than if you worked with a traditional agent. And it says here, ready to get your home's true value? Go to Deshaun in Sun City. It's spelled Deshaun. Somebody write that in the chat for me if you could. Deshaun insuncity.com, DeshaunInSunCity.com to learn more. Deshaun Tellez is a licensed realtor in Nevada, and she's helped hundreds of families nationwide through her referral network. So it's black owned, etc. And it's DeshaunInTheCity.com, Deshaun in the city.com. So that's a black owned business, and they've been a supporter of the Black Business School. So I wanted to shout them out. So thank you for letting me do that. All right. So anyway, moving on. Here's one stat. People in their early 20s are the fastest growing group of gamblers. Starting young also carries a much higher burden when it comes to psychological distress and the elevated risk of developing gambling problems. Among young adults aged 18 to 24, online gambling addiction vulnerability is highest. One source reports that this group is the most vulnerable age group for online gambling addiction. So actually, that 18 to 24 group is really heavy, but under 35 is generally where it gets hit hard. The rate of problem gamblers that take their own lives is 15 times higher than the general population. So what happens is they get in these deep financial problems, all that shame sort of hits, and then they just say, it'd be better if I just wasn't here. If you are in that category, I just want to just say this in case it helps somebody. It's never hopeless, man. It's never over. Like, it's never over. Like, never ever let yourself believe that there's no hope. There's always hope. There's always possibility. You can come back from damn near anything. So don't ever let yourself even fall into that mindset. And I'm only saying that because I know by the end of the day, at least 10,000 of you will see this. Maybe there's like one person that's going to hear this and it's going to change their decision. So just know there's always hope, man. Don't ever even let anybody ever make you think that it's over. It ain't over for you. You got this. You can do this. You got a chance. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Get the help you need. Humble yourself. Admit that you made the mistake. That's the other part too. A lot of people can't overcome their mistakes because they won't even admit they made one, right? They don't even want to humble themselves and say, you know what, I screwed up. I don't have it all figured out. I didn't do it right. That self-awareness, thank you, Lady Emma. That's the right term I'm looking for. That self-awareness, that humility to just say, I ain't got it figured out, that will open so many doors and possibilities for you that you can't even imagine. Don't ever go through life thinking that you know it all and you figured it all out. That's the best way to make stupid mistakes. I ain't got to figure it all out. And I got a lot of education. I went to school a long time. There's more that I haven't figured out than there is that I have. Right. So just humble yourself. Just say, man, okay, I messed up. I did this wrong. Like, let me go figure out a new strategy Today can always be the day that you change your life. Today can always be the day that you go to another level. Today can always be the day that you turn that damn ship around. Don't let fear stop you or keep you going in the bad direction. Pick the right one. All right, moving on. A couple more things. A survey of U.S. adults said that about 8% of adults experience at least one indicator of problem gambling. So the percentage isn't super high, but it's actually high enough that it affects millions of people. In the 18 to 22% age bracket, 58% reported at least one sports betting activity. Among college student bettors, around 10% may meet the criteria for a gambling disorder. That's pretty massive. Another financial study showed that problem gamblers estimate losing about $16,750 per year. Globally, harmful gambling, which includes financial distress, family breakdown, and mental health issues. Like if you ever want to be real stressed out, like just put yourself way deep in debt to the point where you know you got to work 1,000 years to make that money, and then have like a bookie coming to like kill you. That'll mess you up. Let's see, it affects about 1.2% of the adult population. So even though the percentage is small, it still affects a lot of people. Online gamblers with addiction spend about 20 hours per week on gambling platforms. Among young males 18 to 30 in the U.S., about 10% show behaviors indicating a gambling problem compared to 3% in the general population. So these are some stats that can help you understand. And here's the other thing that's interesting too. When I did my research, all the research says that black males are higher in this category than any other group. That black males, for whatever reason, have twice as high of a likelihood of becoming problem gamblers than other people. Maybe it's our definition of masculinity. Maybe it's the fact that in a lot of these gambling ads, they tend to put black men in these ads. I think there's a reason for that. Like there's a reason. I knew a brother who worked at ESPN, and he told me that when ESPN found out how many black males were sitting at home watching TV all day, that's when they realized that they need to put more black men on their sports shows. So you'll have entire sports shows. Tell me I'm lying. You have entire sports shows where it's almost nothing but brothers on there, right? And you would be like, well, why would you? We're only 6-7% of the population. Well, it's because we just have this love for sports. A lot of us played sports. I played sports. We were good at it. We're damn good at it. I rarely met a white kid that could outrun me. It would be if you were white and you could outrun me or outjump me, I'd be like, wait, something's wrong here, right? You must be special, right? And so literally, we have a tremendous amount of athletic ability, and it translates into our dominance of almost every single sport. And there's nothing to be ashamed of with that. But what it can also do is, if we don't know how to harness that in a proper way, it ends up becoming a profit center for other people. So ESPN makes their money by marketing to black males, and the gambling companies are partnered now with the ESPNs. That's why they'll hire the Stephen A. Smiths and others, the Shaquille O'Neals, etc., to do the ads because they know that we are that target demographic. We want to be the high roller. We want to be the big baller. And in fact, actually, when I used to do something with Damon Dash in the Black Business School called Intelligent Boss Moves, one thing I didn't anticipate how much Damon would use gambling terminology to describe how he invests. And that's one area where we were not in alignment. He would say, well, when I was at Rockefeller, we would just bet it all. And it sounds cool and it sounds glamorous, right? And Dame's a cool guy and he's a nice guy. I enjoy talking to him. But I would say, well, I don't really think we have to bet it all. I don't think we have to necessarily put it all on the line and risk putting our families into destitution. I also think that we need to stop celebrating black male financial irresponsibility. I don't know if you remember, there was a show on BET called what was it? It was called Blew the Bag. I blew the bag, and they would have mostly black men on there talking about how they had a bunch of money and they just wasted it. And it's really fascinating. So if you are a black man and you say, "Yeah, I had $10 million and I just I was at the club and I was doing this and doing that," I don't think that should be looked at in a prideful way. It's almost like if a man brags about the fact that he hasn't seen his kids in 20 years, that's not something you should let slide. I don't think other cultures really do that. I don't think they take pride in how much money they can waste. Or if you just look at that particular formula, that particular recipe for losing everything, throwing it up at the club or buying a bunch of material possessions or blowing it at the casino. I'm not saying white guys don't do that too. I'm not saying white guys don't go to the casino. You'll find casinos full of white guys. But there's so many examples of black athletes where you'll see where they have a lot of money, and they're hanging out with the Michael Jordans, and they're all betting $100,000 at a time. And the thing about this goes back to my argument that wealth is culture. Wealth is culture, and being broke is a culture too. Losing money is a culture too. So the culture is, it's really important for me as a young player on the Chicago Bulls. Let's just to take it back a couple decades, because you got to look at my generation to sort of look at the role we played in this. It's really important for me to impress Michael Jordan by putting down $100,000 a hand in poker, but it's not nearly as important for me to feel like I got to go take that $100,000 and do something in my community for a single mom, or to build businesses, or to whatever, right? Like, there should be more pride in productive uses of money than there are in destructive uses of money. In fact, there should be an element of shame in the destructive use of money. Financial immaturity should never be celebrated. And remember, every time somebody blows the bag and loses everything, that's somebody's grandchild that's going to have to go out here and sell their body, or sell themselves to the corporate plantation, and struggle and stress and strain, or make uncomfortable choices because somebody blew the bag. As fathers, as men, it's very important that we become protectors and stewards of that which is important in our families. We have to protect that, and the way you protect things, the way it's let's go back to wealth. You protect wealth by having a secure or security influence mindset, if you will. The desire to protect something is a conservative concept. It means I got my eye on this. I'm aware of this. I'm watching this. I'm not going too far. I'm going to be calculated and strategic in what I do. When you have a community where men are encouraged to throw it out there and throw caution to the wind, and make immature decisions on a regular basis, well, then that's going to destroy everything and everybody. Because every black child grows up looking up to their daddy until their daddy shows that he's not a person worth looking up to. The women, most women I know, they lean toward men to have a certain element of leadership, like the way women will go to church and they all follow the pastor. So if the pastor is not a responsible person, a lot of people will get hurt. So to some extent, culturally speaking, there's a natural leadership role that men are relegated due to the fact that we have the testosterone, which means it's almost like we're all in the car and we're driving it. And so if you've got somebody driving the car who's driving drunk or driving reckless or drives the car off a cliff, then everybody dies. So at the end of the day, when I look at what's happened right now with this NBA scandal, and I look at what's happened with this sports betting culture, where we think it's okay to just waste everything and lose everything in a casino, I translate that back to to what's happened in America when it comes to black wealth. I translate that back to what's happening to the black family. I translate that back to the fact that you have an entirely oppressed community, because you don't have as many real men as you're supposed to actually have. If you had real men in the black community would not be oppressed. I'm going to tell you the truth. If you had real men in the community, the black community would not be. If every black man in America was, let's say, a member of the Nation of Islam, that community would not be oppressed. Not only would you not be oppressed, but you'd probably have more wealth and more family structure than most white people have. You really would. So I'm not here to shame anybody. I'm not here to attack anybody. It probably sounds like I have, but I've called some names. But I really, really dare anybody who disagrees with me to just bring some facts, bring some evidence that I'm wrong, and I'll reconsider that. But if you're just mad about what I said, that I called you out for losing, when you got the Donald Trumps and the others, then the Joe Bidens, they have their foot on your neck. Well, a lot of it is because every time you got an opportunity to move the ball down the field, you decided to throw an interception. You choose to fumble instead of score touchdowns. When you celebrate blowing the bag, when you celebrate the gambling, when you celebrate going to the club and making it rain and throwing it up in the air, well, then you ain't doing nothing but screaming to the world that we're a pack of immature losers and we want to be behind. We want to be, we want to be left behind by society. We want to lose. And that's not, to me, that's not appropriate culture if you believe in black people actually accomplishing anything. So this to me, this whole NBA gambling story, to me, that's a black story. It really is to me. It's sure white people are involved. Absolutely. The NBA is run by mostly, a bunch of white guys, I'm sure. At least most of the owners are white. Not all of them, but a lot of them. When the NBA gets hit, it's similar things. But I still think at the end of the day, this comes back to the culture. What culture are you committed to? Are you committed to a culture of wealth preservation and prosperity? Or are you committed to a culture that continuously fumbles the bag and fumbles the ball and consistently gets left behind because you're doing things that are just not intelligent, responsible, forward thinking, or productive? It's up to you. That's where I stand on that. All right. So thank you for listening to me. I appreciate that. I know that I was very opinionated, and if I was, in my opinions, offended you, I hope we can still disagree and love each other. And also, I encourage you to look at the science. And if you have a son, take this recording, share it with him because I really think the boys need to be warned about this. Is that the fact that they're promoting DraftKings at sporting events to 21-year-olds with $1 million in their pocket ain't nothing but a freaking recipe for disaster. Just wait till they come after the NCAA. That's gonna be good too. So you're gonna see a whole lot of indictments happening. It's about to get real ugly up in here. And a lot of people are gonna go to prison, and prison ain't fun. So Tupac told you that though. All right, so I'm gonna get out of here, guys. By the way, tonight we're doing the economic elevation circle. So if you're doing stuff with your family, wealth wise, and you want to join us, and you can talk to me, let me know what you're doing, and I can give you my feedback. The group is deliberately small and exclusive, so you'll get a chance to talk to me. So just go to economicelevationcircle.com. That's economicelevationcircle.com. And also, some of you are asking about stock options, and there will be something that I'll send you on stuff we're going to do on stock options in the next few days. So make sure you're on the text list for this class if you're not on it yet. To get on the text list for the class, text the word morning to the number 87948. Text morning to the phone number 87948, and you will hear from me soon. And